This is the Hawks Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Hawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Hawks Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's quick hitting local insight after every game you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra. Batiste. Alongside me is NBA and college basketball analyst DeShaun Tate. The Hawks Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So the Hawks were looking to get the all-important season series advantage against the Hornets. We'll give you our takes on why they couldn't put space between themselves and Charlotte in a very tight group of play-in teams in the East. And we'll tell you what you'll be talking about, because it's what we're talking about in the Hawks 126-119 loss tonight. And Tate, you said officiating went the Hornets' way.
It did, Tenitra, and not even, and I want to make sure that I preface this, not even necessarily as if they were getting calls that the Hawks were not getting, although that was the case.
Yes.
I also saw the Hawks getting some calls that Charlotte was not getting. I just saw Charlotte getting more calls going their way than the Hawks. And I can't even necessarily be mad or go against the fact that that was happening, because what we rarely get is old school basketball type of feel. This is the Battle of the South. This is the BBQ Series and all that.
I never heard that one. Okay.
This is the BBQ Series is a new one. The BBQ Series is a new one. But I think it's just the fact that, you know, it's very rare that we get officiating that embraces that kind of style. And it fit into the way that Charlotte not only wanted to play this game, how they knew that they would have to play if they wanted to win this game, but that's kind of oddly been the way that they've been winning their games on the way to a 9-game win streak. So it played into their favor. And I think it teaches the Atlanta Hawks a little bit of something, because sometimes you'll hear me come on here and say, you know, the South got something to say and they put the Southern hospitality to the side and decide to punch back. But very often do they decide to punch first. We saw them punch first, get onto a 5-0 run to start the game, but we didn't see them punch hard enough.
Yeah, or punch consistently enough. Because
there you go.
Definitely there was a moment where Onyeka Okongwu got all tangled up. I think he was feeling some type of way. Exactly, because Moussa Diabate literally, it felt like he was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to take the mask off or if he was trying to like kind of knock Double O to kind of see where he was, but Double O didn't take kindly to that. Of course, he and Diabate ended up with technicals. I thought that might have been a point where the Hawks were really going to get riled up and take over. Like, I just knew that was going to be our turning point that we were going to talk about tonight. But it just really didn't. It was just like they both just went back to playing basketball. And that's the kind of thing, like you said, where the consistency of the punch back is what we were hoping to see. That would have been a great opportunity for this Hawks team to show you're in our building. And we know how important this game is, because if we can take the 2-1 series lead, then that puts all the pressure on Charlotte to be able to take that final game and then at least tie it up, if you will, or put the Hawks in position to win the season series overall. And then when you start talking about the standings, which we know in the East, it's like razor thin when you start talking about the play-ins, right? Because Orlando, Miami, 27 games or 27 wins, Hawks 26, Charlotte 25. So when you start thinking about who's in the 9th spot versus the 10th spot, 7th versus the 8th, so on and so forth, these games matter. So yes, the Hawks can still tie the series, but ultimately I think if they had maybe brought that physicality on a consistent basis, like Charlotte did, especially on the inside, then we might be talking about a win versus a loss, because
that's right,
man, you saw a lot of that on the inside. Like literally, I kept thinking to myself, okay, I know Double O is back and he looks like he's banging inside, but then there were moments where I was like, okay, where's the Hawks front court? Because points in the paint wise, and not just the front court for Charlotte, but overall, they outscored the Hawks points in the paint, 56-46. And I feel like a lot of that was them muscling their way inside. But let me just be real too. I felt like this was that game that was dead long before the clock died. That was my take on it, right? Because the Hawks 3-ball was good. In fact, I was telling someone who was sitting next to me that it felt like the beginning of the Thursday night game against the Jazz. But I felt like I was feeling some type of way. Then I realized, no, wait a minute, it actually does look like it, because in the Jazz game, the Hawks literally started out hot from 3, and that was, I think it was like 43% shooting from 3 against Jazz Thursday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, 75% from 3 in the first quarter. And then in that second quarter, Thursday night, the Hawks kind of went down the rabbit hole for some reason from 3.
That's right.
Kind of look at where they were Q2 today, it was less than half of what they were shooting in the first quarter, 36% to be exact. So I feel like that was one of those things where, man, the up and down shooting, and then you go back to the third quarter, 50% from 3, but then you get to the fourth quarter and it's 38%. And most importantly, because 38% is not a bad number, that's not a bad place to land. And overall, the Hawks did quite fine with their 3-point shot. The problem with that is when you go over in like the final 5 minutes.
Not
so
good.
You can't just make the 3, DeShaun. You got to make the 3 when it counts.
I agree with that, Tenitra. And I think that, one of the biggest things here was, I know that there was some conversation prior to the game starting where there was a lot of emphasis that Quinn Snyder wanted to put on limiting second chance points, rebounds for the Charlotte Hornets, as they're one of the best in the league, and certainly within the stretch of this 10 or 9 game win streak, where they're amongst some of the best, especially after I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was like they're amongst some of the best. They're rebounding 37% of their own misses, which is second in the league ranking, and 39% of second chance points end up being 3-pointers, which they're first in the league with. It really wanted to put some emphasis, and they didn't always do that. They did okay at that. The Hawks did at limiting to them, but in the moments where they didn't, they really didn't, and Charlotte capitalized on that and made them pay. And you can kind of see why they've been on the run that they've been on, and kind of how they've been addressing their games differently than I feel like the Atlanta Hawks have. I don't know what it is, but they've got something working within them, some chemistry that they're developing and establishing amongst one another, kind of playing with house money and trying to just show that they're not the same old Charlotte Hornets, yet a different kind of Charlotte Hornets than we're used to, that kind of a franchise showing that they are. But Quinn Snyder also wanted to make sure that they limited the turnovers as well, which I think that the Hawks did a pretty good job at. Yeah. It's just that the other things that the Hawks didn't do well, they just didn't do very well at all.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, they turned Charlotte over 16 times. Right. But they only got 13 points out of those 16 turnovers, right? Whereas you flip it, Hawks only turned the ball over 10 times, but the Hornets got 15 points out of them. So again, when you have those competing stats, if you will, juxtaposing, and you're kind of digging in to see, hey, where did everything go wrong, or where did things go wrong here and there, you kind of see it. And it felt like, and I will tell you, being in the arena tonight, I was actually frustrated, right? You were. Yeah, I was actually frustrated because I felt like it was this back and forth, which, hey, look, you just made a great point. This is a different Charlotte Hornets team. This is a team that seems to have a winning philosophy, and they're I mean, like, they've always been difficult for the Hawks to beat. You know that. They could be the worst team in the league.
It's still tough for the Hawks.
And exactly. And for some reason, they can still find a way to beat the Hawks. But whatever Charles Lee's philosophy is as their head coach, it's working. And then again, too, they're getting a lot of good productivity out of just about every player, including their rookie Knueppel. So it matters, right? And then if everybody in your rotation, 2 of your 5 starters are scoring not just in double digits, but 23 and 26 respectively, of course, 26 for Miles Bridges. But then you look over at the Hawks, and Jalen Johnson had another one of his stellar games at 31 points. But then the rest of the starters kind of struggled just to get into double digits. That's another thing where it's like, man, this was a rough game. This was a tough one. It just hurt, and it was just frustrating because, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the Hawks had chances. They just didn't take advantage of it. But like I said, that's what we'll be talking about coming up. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. Now, there are nights when your team stresses you out tonight. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. You need it. Sometimes you just need dessert to get over it. Now, those late night interviews hit and suddenly you need chips at midnight. Well, DoorDash is built exactly for that. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. That's DoorDash in your bag all season long. DoorDash. Stay in your bag. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. You're going to love how simple Quo makes everything. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number, and Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise, Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. So make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. So whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, DeShaun, I really think the Hawks are going to look back at this one and they are going to see one opportunity after another to have gotten a dub against Charlotte, and that's what we'll be talking about.
This is what you'll be talking about.
And DeShaun, we kind of alluded to it earlier. You can look down the stat line and look across this box score and get very, very frustrated, because there is category after category, stat line after stat line, where if the Hawks had done a little bit here, a little bit there, you and I would be having a different conversation. And this one really hurts because, again, you're looking at the standings in the East, and you see the Hawks are still in 9th place, Charlotte's in 10th. Hawks are 26-28, Charlotte 25-28, and we know that the Hawks have actually played one or two more games than most of the teams in the league, so there's that. But this is already tight in that play-in group. It's only going to get tighter. So you can't afford to lose these types of games, especially when you can find so many places, one after another, where the Hawks blew it.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing is not just losing the games, but losing them the way that the Atlanta Hawks happen to lose it. The implications you've already talked about for the division, for playoff implications, just the rivalry within itself. You have to anticipate and expect the physicality, and just in case officials decide to hold whistles, you got to be ready to battle back and not allow someone to come into your house and take over your trap. I heard that's what the new kids are calling it nowadays. So I've been waiting on this opportunity to try it. Tenitra. Yeah, that's me. But just in instances where you have the Hawks not rebounding as well as they should have. No more excuses about the, Kristaps Porzingis, and we, definitely got really spoiled with the way that Jock Landale played on the last game. We knew that it was very, very unlikely that we'd see him kind of, replicate or duplicate what he did on the last time around, but obviously didn't look like he was, much of himself from that game. Ironically, coincidentally enough or whatever, just CJ McCollum just hasn't been looking like the same CJ McCollum getting off to the hot starts as he first had done. Corey Kispert, as much as the expectations are somewhat kind of low for him, this is what happens when you start putting that load of expectation and moving away from Luke Kennard. These are the guys that have to step up from a shooting standpoint. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker didn't play nearly as well as we're kind of used to. We're used to him putting up about 20 plus per game. And so I think that with these guys that are primary shooters, the last three that I named, you're not getting that. Plus you're getting, killed, down low on the boards, and also from a scoring interior standpoint. You got to be prepared a little bit more to at least get the stops. Even if you don't bring the offensive production, you're going to have nights where the ball's just not going to go in the basket. You got to be able to get stops, not getting bullied. And I think that's ultimately what we're talking about happening that Charlotte did tonight.
Yeah. And for me, in addition to Nickeil Alexander-Walker having an off night, that's fine. But the one that was probably more unacceptable for me was Dyson Daniels. Like somehow, some way, somebody has to find his offense, because it feels like it's down under.
Yeah,
and it's got to come back to the States, because it was. And again, I think you just mentioned it about kind of Corey Kispert and Jock Landale as examples of coming back down to earth. Yeah, you didn't necessarily think that Dyson Daniels was going to have the season he had last year, but again, maybe he could, because maybe he could evolve from that season. But when I start seeing multiple bunnies miss, you just cannot be 3 feet from the basket.
Right.
When this team has the opportunity to come get within 2, take the lead, and you blow it multiple times, like that to me is unacceptable as a starter. Jock Landale, I'll give you a little bit of breathing room.
Sure.
Because
it's your second game.
Exactly. And I mean, you're 8th in the rotation, in the 9-man rotation.
That's correct.
I
but Dyson Daniels it'd be different if maybe Dyson Daniels was able to bring something from 3.
But
right. We're having to settle for, we're having to settle for, anything that he can do from a penetration to the basket standpoint, because the shot from perimeter is not falling.
Exactly. So then when you get the opportunity, you don't land the plane. That can't keep happening. I think that was a challenge for me. And I think another thing, so that we're not leaving this all at the feet of the team, sometimes Quinn Snyder's substitutions didn't quite make sense. There was one moment where, okay, I can see why you take CJ McCollum out, but I think you put Corey Kispert in. Yeah. Now, granted, if it would have been an opportunity where Quinn was thinking that the Hawks would get the ball back and have time for him to take a shot, sure. But if I remember correctly, that wasn't quite it, right? And maybe, and I know the Hawks like to play with pace, but maybe if these guys are banging on the inside and just throwing bodies around, if you will, maybe you do get some of your bigs in there, like a Jock Landale, give him maybe a few more minutes so he can maybe bang around a little bit more. I don't know. I just felt like there were moments in time where I wasn't quite sure what the rationale was for Quinn's lineups.
And realistically, those are the type of disappointments that are going to happen with around this time of the season. You've been adding a lot of new pieces, getting rid of some guys that's been here for a while, getting rid of some guys that haven't been around here for very long that you were relying upon, helping, trying to establish something here. Some of it resulted in wins, some of it resulted in losses, but end result, they're not here anymore. You're bringing in new guys and you're still trying to get acclimated. I mean, so much has happened even since Onyeka Okongwu went down. He's playing with new guys, and that's just within about a 2-week span. And that's not just a change of one or two guys. Right. There's almost arguably a whole lineup of things that have changed over a few short weeks. So, I mean, I think that, some of that kind of has to be expected. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes with Quinn Snyder, when you're making some of those changes and you're making some of those adjustments, it's not the lineups that he's putting out there on the floor sometimes as much as I think it is the timing of which when he decides to put. It's like not only why did you put these 5 out there, but why did you put these 5 out there at this point of the game that doesn't always sometimes add up.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. But again, we'll see if maybe they can bounce back, because certainly you want to go into the All-Star break on a high note. And they've got a couple of games to reset and do just that. The Hawks Postcast is the #1 place to hang out after every game and is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So remember, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more on the Hawks, head over to Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.